What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast, where we talk about travel hacking, personal finance, life hacks, and real estate. My name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I'm your host as always. And don't forget to follow me on all the socials, so Instagram and TikTok at Figuring It Out Finance, and YouTube now as well, where you can listen to every single episode of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast. Go check out the website where you can sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on everything that I'm doing, as well as reading the blogs that I have out as well. So today's episode is going to be covering what I'm looking for in my next house hack. So right now, currently, I live in a small 2-bed, 1-bath home. I rented it out, and my roommate ended up moving out before his lease was out. So what I did was I said, you just signed this lease. I'm not going to make you rent it out. So I gave him about 3 different options, and what he's doing now is still paying off that lease until somebody else moves in. So while I'm trying to get that other room rented, he is still paying the rent for that room and is responsible till the end of September. So, there's a room right now that I have being completely paid for, and I'm not having to do a single thing. Like, that person is not even living here. So I don't suggest going out with that intention, but it was just kind of a result of what happened. He lived in here for a little over a year, signed another year lease, and came to me after about 2 months. And we came up with this plan instead of him having to live in here for another 9 months when he decided to move out. So that was my first house hack. And now, as I'm fully into real estate, I'm able to, look at a lot of different houses and have the contractors be able to look at it. And what I'm really looking for and what I'm going to break down today is, small multifamily, converting basements, garages, and split level homes, and ADUs. So those are the big 3 that I'm looking for, and I'm going to break down all of them here for you, just so I can really explain what I'm looking to do here. So getting right into it, the small multifamily before it breaks into commercial are duplexes, which is 2 units, triplexes 3, and quadplexes, which is 4 units. Once you get into 5, it gets into commercial territory to where it's a different type of loan, and you can't buy that on a 3% down personal, 3 to 5% personal occupancy. I said that wrong. A personal or occupying it yourself is what I mean. I cannot put my words together. But what I'm looking to do is, if I would buy a duplex, I'm looking to buy it, live in 1 unit, and then rent out that other side on Airbnb as a short or medium term rental. So super simple there. And then you get into the triplex, which, now you have 2 other units. Now it's a business. So what I could do there is I could go 1 long-term, 1 short-term, and then that gives it a little bit more stability. And then the quadplex, what I could really do is I could rent out the 1 on Airbnb and rent out the other 2 long-term while I'm living in that 4th unit. When I move out, that can turn into another Airbnb, because those 2 long-term units are going to be able to stabilize the property a little bit better. So say the Airbnbs aren't doing great, but when they do, they bring in a lot of cash flow. That's awesome. But being able to have it stabilized, make sure the mortgage is being taken care of, and then everything else is kind of icing on the cake. Because what you could do is you could rent all 4 of them long term and, make it out of sight, out of mind, or you could try and make a little bit more money off of it with the Airbnbs. But I definitely wouldn't go all of them Airbnbs or even 3 of them, just because I want that stability. So that's what I would do with the duplex, the triplex, and the quad. I would make sure one of those other units is an Airbnb, with the others being a long-term rental. Just making sure that mortgage is taken care of every month, making sure I don't have anything to worry about. So very, very simple there. They're just very, very hard to find in the Charlotte area unless you know people, and then it's really, really hard to get a good deal because move-in ready, we were looking at one neighborhood. We're looking at about $500,000 for, probably a duplex. And then the triplexes and the quads are a lot harder to find because they're just not as common unless you're buying it as a big group, and then that purchase price is going to be really, really high. So really hard to find, but a duplex is ideally what I'm looking for. If I could get something with 3 or 4 units, that's just more icing on the cake. So that's the goal with that. And then moving into the next area here is somewhere where I'd have to get a little bit more creative. So converting basements, garages, or split level homes into multiple units. So let me back up here first. So house hacking, the entire goal is to be able to cut down on that largest monthly expense. So say you're renting an apartment by yourself, it's maybe 2 bedrooms. So in this area, you're probably looking at about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. That's ideally going to be your largest payment. You're not going to be spending $1,000 on food or going out to eat in restaurants and gas. You're going to be able to save money in those areas, but you're not really going to be able to save that much if you're living by yourself. So that's where you either get a 2-bedroom apartment, rent out that other room, or just get a roommate. And it's easier to do this straight out of college because once you've been living by yourself, it's really hard to get back into that mentality to where you can rent out that other room and kind of be comfortable with it. So it's easier just to start there. And then, once you're solidified and do a couple house hacks, a little bit better off financially, it's going to be easier to move into living by yourself because that monthly mortgage is going to be able to be completely taken care of. So that's what I'm ideally looking for here. But moving back into the basements and garages. So I actually looked at a house not too long ago. It was a little over $500,000. I would have been able to buy this subject to taking over their mortgage payments and paying them on their equity that they have in the home. So they had a huge basement, and I was going to be able to rent out the main part of the house, not including the basement, for just about $3,000 a month, and not even on Airbnb. That would have been long term. It was like 4-bed, 3-bath or something crazy. And they had just this huge basement that could easily be, that was already kind of set up as a 1-bedroom home. I would have only had to put in a kitchen and then, do a little bit of renovation down there. And that would have been a whole separate unit. And you would have had to get a little bit creative on how to actually get in the house or into that basement unit. But that's just an option. If you have a good sized basement to where you could make it into a studio, where like me and my girlfriend could live in that little studio, it wouldn't bother us because we're renting out that main part of the home. And that's the goal, is to be able to rent out that big part of the home, because say you have a 3-bed, 2-bath home, and then you have a large basement. You could live in that basement and you could easily rent out that 3-bed, 2-bath for just around probably, at a minimum, $1,800 a month, which is easily going to be able to take care of that mortgage or almost all of that mortgage. So that cuts down, if I were to buy it myself, I'm looking at about, $1,800 to $2,000 a month just on the basic mortgage. So if I rent out that home for $1,800 a month, they're taking care of their own electric, water, everything on that home. That cuts down my monthly expense to either zero on it and I'm living for free, or it cuts it down to that, under $500 range, which is ideal. That means that's so much easier for me than to nickel and dime going out to eat or anything else, because, it's just well over $1,000 just back in my pocket every single month. Way easier to save than, trying to nickel and dime yourself. So the same thing kind of applies for garages. If you have a huge garage, maybe it's a double, you could easily turn that into a studio. You're probably not looking at being able to turn it into a one bedroom unless you can get a little creative. If there's a room attached to the garage that you could use as well, because you're going to have to insert that kitchen, and then you're going to have to make sure there can be flooring put in there, it's insulated. So that's going to go, be a little bit more work than the basement in my opinion, but it's still an option. And then split level homes is something that I'm looking at. It's a little bit more popular in my area to where, and what I mean by the split level is it's not necessarily a basement. It's kind of like a walkout basement to where you can just kind of block off the stairs down into that lower den area, or maybe it's a living room and you can walk out. So you have separate entrances. So that's ideally what I'm looking for, is the separate entrances so that you can have two separate units. Because if you just share the same driveway, it's doable, but you're going to get into each other's way. I would rather have it completely separated to where it's two separate units. That's going to be a lot more comfortable for me rather than, running by the room or something like that. So having those two separate units, it's easier to have the split level homes because maybe the entrance is on the back or on the side and not the front, to where you'd be running into each other all the time. So the split level normally has a door to the side or to that back exit to where you could pull your car around, complete separate entrances. So the split level kind of goes in the same, where it's already insulated. It could be a studio, maybe a one bedroom is on that floor as well. And all you'd have to do is, block off that with some drywall and just to cancel out the noise to make it two separate units. And then, you already have the water hooked up, especially if there's a basement or a bathroom, or not a basement, but a bathroom already down in that area. And that's what the split level home offers, because it's already kind of set up for that, to where you have the bathroom already there, and then it turns into a studio or a one bedroom, and then all you got to do is put a kitchenette in there, and or maybe even a full kitchen, and there you have a duplex all-in-one home. So that requires you to get a little bit more creative, and they're just a little bit, the split level homes are a little bit easier to find, and then you could Airbnb the one part, rent out the full main part of the home, just cut down on that main monthly expense. So last one here is an ADU. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. Let me check if I got that right. Yes, accessory dwelling unit. I couldn't remember if it was additional or not, but accessory dwelling unit. So that's like if you have basically what it is, it's a separate, smaller home on your property. So say you have a pretty big property, and then you put just a smaller, like maybe 600 or 700 square foot tiny home in the backyard, and you're able to rent that out. So a lot of people Airbnb those, and it cash flows really nice. But what I would look at is, or maybe it's even a garage with a unit on top of it, with like a one bedroom, maybe a kitchen, running water. That would be an ADU. So what you could do is you could rent out the main home like usual that you would normally do, and you could just live in that ADU. You're not going to need the space, and you're looking to cut down anyway. So those units with it, or so that ADU with maybe it's a garage with a bedroom or something on top of it. It's already got water probably hooked up in there. It's got electric. All you need to do is, make sure that you have everything that you need. But that's exactly what I'm looking for, separate units. And that's what an ADU can offer. So I see a lot of homes in this area that maybe have that garage, and then they have that extra unit kind of in there. It's like a bedroom there, and all you'd have to do is install a kitchen, because it already has a bedroom and a bathroom. You just have to do something small, and then you turn the garage or maybe even half of it into like a living room, kitchen area. So that's a little bit simpler to do, and that's a lot more popular in my area. So something that I'm looking for. It's just not super cheap to find. So that's the name of the game, and that's where you have to get a little bit more creative on the finance. But if you're not looking for it and you don't know what to look for, this is a great episode because it's a bunch of different ideas that I'm looking for right now. So when I see it, I can jump on it. So that's pretty much what I'm looking for in my next house hack is small multifamily like a duplex, triplex, or a quadplex that I can Airbnb one of the units and stabilize it with long-term rentals in the others while I'm living in one of the units, converting basements, garages, or split-level homes into 2 separate units, or an ADU to where it's already separated and I can rent out the main part of the home, taking care of that monthly mortgage. So that's exactly what I'm looking for in my next house hack in my area. So I'll keep you updated as I kind of go through that searching process, as well as trying to flip, working on finding the private money. I might have a subject to opportunity kind of flip, turn it into an Airbnb opportunity coming up here soon. So I'll make sure to document that on my Instagram and TikTok. Follow me there, Figuring It Out Finance on both. So I appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast, episode number 37, talking about my next house hack. This is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off.